Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a good friend, Cody Goff of outdoor2way.com. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, Jay. How are you doing, buddy?
Good. You know, I've had you on the podcast before, and I just don't think I could have you on the podcast without giving you a little bit of a hard time. My nickname for Cody Goff actually is Wildcat because he went to that other school down there south of Phoenix in Tucson, the University of Arizona. And so every year when U of A, ASU plays football or basketball or croquet or any sport, we tend to give each other a hard time.
Yeah, it could even be badminton. It wouldn't matter.
You know, I always say I don't care if ASU loses every single football game of the year. As long as they beat the Wildcats, that's all that I care about.
Well, I can understand, but that's the problem, Jay. Most of the people out of ASU, they're just haters.
The one thing that I do hate, speaking of haters, is when we do happen to beat you in football, then I get, well, we really cream you in basketball. It's the comeback of every single Wildcat. Well, we beat you in basketball.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, that's becoming less of a go-to.
Goff, how you doing, buddy? It's great to talk to you. How things going over at Outdoor Two Way?
Oh, they've been really, really good. You know, we created outdoor2way.com to really be kind of a resource to reach out to people in the outdoors, not just hunters, but obviously to hunters as well, and really try to be an educational resource for people and help them kind of make better decisions. For example, buying two-way radios. There's a lot of misconception of what you're going to go buy at Walmart, that it's going to perform the way the kind of products perform that we provide.
What does outdoor2way.com, what products and services do you guys provide?
Well, we really range with everything from, commercial grade or even professional grade two-way radios. Probably more the commercial grade, because professional grade wouldn't be necessary to spend that kind of money, but also satellite phones, the Spot communication, emergency communication unit from Global Star as well. Cell boosters from Wilson, also WeBoost, and really about anything in between. It could be mobile radios, it could be antennas, anything you need to set up, CB radios even.
You know, it seems like I run into people in the field all the time, and I see on social media outdoor2way.com, and it's been great to see you be able to reach out to guides and outfitters all across the West, and hunters that I know, people traveling around. You're selling them satellite phones, you're selling them radios. Your business has really expanded. What do you attribute that expansion and good growth to?
Well, first of all, let me at least pause a moment and give you some props. I got to thank you. The help of good friends like you as well, helping kind of promote that name out there. When you look at the power of social media today, it's almost still shocking to me how quickly word can spread about what you do, right? And I just think it comes down to, Luke and I try to make sure we take care of the customers. That always has to come first. So if someone has an issue with a radio, we take care of those things immediately. And take that, very, very seriously. But I think it's also about really trying to work with other promotional partners like you to go out and educate. I mean, I think I learned a lot of that from watching you, really taking the time to educate people and sharing knowledge and experience. I think that really connects to people and makes people really want to, work with you.
For sure. Absolutely. Cody, you guys handle anything from a guy that wants to buy, 2 to 4 radios for him and his buddies to corporations that you may sell, hundreds of radios and systems. Maybe talk about your capability from a standpoint of being able to handle large scale mining projects and companies,
Sure.
state and county and local,
Yeah, you
companies
bet.
and what have you.
Yeah, we do. Outdoor2A.com is really the product of a bigger company called Aircom. Aircom's been around since 1973. We're one of the largest Motorola dealers in the western U.S. We work with everybody from big oil and gas companies to big mining companies like Freeport McMoran. So when we start looking at doing two-way radio communications for, let's say, hunters, that's very, very basic simplex, what they call simplex communication, which is just radio to radio. We do much larger, compact, complex systems with multiple repeaters that are trunked, so it's all intertied with controllers. So much more complicated in emergency type communication for companies that have to have it, that it's really critical to their operations. So for us to do the hunting radio side, it's really more of a fun part of it, right? To help people that love a lot of the same things that we're passionate about, and being able to guide them into something that'll actually work for them. I hear a lot of complaints about the little consumer grade radios people buy at like a Walmart. So yeah,
And it's like, the buck just went over the. Did you say the buck went over the hill? Oh.
Well, that's the thing. It's
it's just horrible.
Well, exactly. It's and I think it's a good kind of point in our conversation to talk about. A lot of the commercial or I'm sorry, consumer grade radios you buy, they run on what are called either GMRS or FRS frequencies. So the GMRS is the General Mobile Radio Service. Okay, FRS is the Family Radio Service. And these frequencies are set aside for general public use. So they're in everything from a Motorola Talkabout to a Midway. And it's not that those radios don't have their use, because they do. But to expect more than a mile kind of coverage out of those, or if you start to really lose line of sight at all, part of the issue in those radios, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are 2-watt radios, which is, really not enough to start getting me over the hilltop. If I have too much terrain in between us, too many pine trees, it's not a strong enough signal to really penetrate and get to the other side. And that's why we promote the commercial grade radio. You're going to be running 4-watt in a UHF, 5-watt in a VHF. You're going to be able to have a lot more transmission power, a lot stronger reception to the signal. And frankly, you're just dealing with a product that's going to hold up longer. They're going to have the type of IP ratings for dust and water resistance. And let's be honest, you and I have hunted together many times. I could safely say we're not that, gentle on our gear.
No, to say the least. So just to back up a second, when you're talking watts, the cheapos that you can buy at Walmart or Costco or what have you, they're typically how many watts? And then if you step it up like some of the radios that I have, what is the difference like in as far as coverage, line of sight, what have you?
Sure. And I get that question from almost anybody that calls me for the first time to buy a serious set of radios is, how far will these talk, right? That's almost always the first question. And, I always kind of open up with that of like, I wish I had the crystal ball to read the magic of radio frequency. And that's the tough thing in what we deal with, not being able to see radio frequency and it having to technically be tested, with very expensive equipment, by the way. It's not always an easy answer, but when you go back to these kind of store-bought, devices, those are going to range anywhere from a half of a watt to maybe 2 watts. I rarely see, a 4 or 5 watt handheld radio sold at the Walmarts or the Costco's of the world. And yeah, they're a lot less money, but I think, all of us will attest that have hunted long enough, especially out west, you get what you pay for in your gear. And, the radios like you and I would be running, let's say like a Titan TR4X or a Motorola CP200D, if you're running in UHF, those are 4-watt radios, so they're at least twice, the output power of those other smaller little consumer grade radios. When you start talking the coverage on those, really coverage has to do with multiple things, one of it being the terrain, what's in between us. Okay? There's a reason when you look around different cities and parts of the world that repeaters are up on top of mountains. It's because the radio signal won't travel up over the mountain and back down the other side. So that radio signal has to hit that repeater. That repeater hears it and then rebroadcasts it and retransmits it. So, what I've found in running UHF, like you and I both run, UHF is going to penetrate better than VHF, or VHF bounces better. But VHF will give you better line of sight. But I can tell you from my own experience, even with you with the Motorola CP200, we could be 15 miles apart and tell you, hey, we found it, right? Because we have enough line of sight from one mountaintop to another. You're going to get enough power to do that. Now, that all then depends on the interference that's out there, right? But if we're out in these remote areas where we hunt most of the time, there's just not a lot of other radio interference. Yeah, there might be a rancher running some mobiles and some trucks. There might be some boats down on a lake somewhere by where we're at. But other than that, there's just not going to be a lot of other radio interference like you're going to find, let's say, in the core of Phoenix. So when we start talking about the coverage, if I buy a Motorola Talkabout, to expect it to go a mile line of sight is probably more than you should expect. And a lot of things get advertised interesting ways that I can't always explain. And I get questions about that a lot. But it's like I tell them, I don't have the money or the time to go fight that and claim somebody's falsely advertising. But what I do know is, we're the guys that take this gear out and use it. So that if I make a recommendation to somebody, it's something that I would use and I have used and that I have seen works. But I know I can get out of a Titan TR4X from one mountaintop to another. I can get 10 miles, and I'm running 4-watt and UHF.
Yeah, for sure. I've been impressed with those Titan. I believe I have the TR200. You could correct me. It might be the TR400.
TR4X.
Yeah, TR4X.
With, yeah.
And then I've also got Motorola CP200Ds. And you were able, let's talk a little bit about, you were able to program my different radios so that they will all talk together, even though some of the radios aren't the same manufacturer. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a very, very common question, and it's important to understand it. So when you're running in commercial grade radios, you're either going to run in UHF or you're going to run in VHF. UHF is just ultra high frequency. VHF just means very high frequency. Okay, but what you cannot do from a radio to radio standpoint, which is what we call simplex communication, I cannot make VHF talk to UHF, and I cannot make UHF talk to VHF. Now, it doesn't matter on the manufacturer. We can make, if two different radios are in VHF, I can program them to talk to each other. Okay, and really in the programming, it becomes an important thing. So many of the new radios now with digital technology, they're capable of running in both digital and analog. You can create different zones of them and have a zone that's just your analog channels, have a button program to change it and talk in digital on your digital channels. And I think the important thing too, I get a lot of questions, I still want to be able to talk to my brother. He's got some Motorola Talkabouts. Okay, well, let's take the Motorola Talkabout. It runs on GMRS frequencies. I can program those and match those by a code, and there's charts for all these things that you can access online. but you can program GMRS frequencies into a commercial grade radio. There's nothing illegal about that. You don't have to have a license for that. But what you can't do, and there's a lot of misconception, I can't go back and just put, your buddy has a set of licensed frequencies, I can't put that in your Garmin Rhino for you. That's a very common one I hear about is, well, no, I can program my Garmin Rhino. No, you can't program your Garmin Rhino. You can change the frequency on a channel and a code, but it's still a set amount of frequencies, and I can put those in any Motorola Talkabout. They're on the same exact frequencies. So it's important to know in the programming, we do this a lot for hunters. We take all the beeps off of a radio. You can't just do that from the radio. You got to have a programming cable, and you got to have the software to get in and see that. We can use buttons on the side that you hit for a long hold to change your zone and go from analog to digital. There are adjustments you can make in what we call the accessory mic gain. So like in an earpiece, right, the sensitivity, I can adjust within that where that range needs to be. So, there's a lot more to programming and in what we really call the code plug, which is not just your frequencies, but really the encompassing programming to that radio that a lot of people just don't get to see.
GoHunt.com Insider is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. They are the industry leader and number one source for Western hunting information for a lot of reasons. They have changed the game for how hunts and hunting information is found. Within a matter of minutes using Filtering 2.0, you'll be able to filter by state, species, residency, odds of drawing a tag, specific hunting dates, harvest success percentages, to find the hunts that fit exactly what you're looking for. As an exclusive offer to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners, if you sign up for a GoHunt.com Insider membership and use the J. Scott promo code at checkout, you'll receive a $50 coues gift card or a choice of a $50 Sportsman's Warehouse gift card. Head on over to GoHunt.com Insider, click on the blue Join Now button, and get yourself the most valuable membership a hunter can have.
Cody, let's take a quick break here.
I have known the owners of the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products.
All right, Cody, let's talk a little bit about these radios as far as a price structure range from high to low, what people might be looking at. And, with that price, the longevity that you see with those radios and how much use they're going to get out of them.
Sure.
And we don't have to, not specifics, but in generalities.
No. I mean, I think you're really kind of looking at, when we start looking into a quality commercial grade radios. So again, at least a 4-watt portable radio, you're really going to be, to me, getting into a price range, where you're going to be around $300 and even up. There's lots of different models to certain radios. They have displays on them, and they have programmable buttons on the front, and I can program your name in it and see that I'm talking to you. But for the most part, I think it's unnecessary from a hunting aspect to spend that kind of money to have displays and other items. But when we start looking at the pricing, it's shocking to most people, but it's like I tell them, you really can't compare a midway 2-watt portable radio to a Motorola CP200D. It is not an apples to apples product comparison. And it's just like in Titan. Titan makes a really bulletproof little 2-watt radio called the Titan TR200. I mean, you can throw that radio and the battery will pop off and put the battery back on it, and it'll turn on. It takes a lot to break that radio, but that's going to be in like a $200 range. And again, it's only a 2-watt radio. So from a bow hunting aspect, it can be a perfect little radio if you're going to be close with each other. But to go expect that thing to talk 5 miles apart is just not going to happen. But when we start looking at the longevity of radio, I think there's really 2 factors the most that we see, because we have full-time repair bench techs that are fixing radios, headsets, you name it. And I'd probably tell you 90% of the repairs that get done is internal damage to a radio that's water damage. It's almost the most common thing that we see. So I think it's an important thing when you look at buying a commercial grade radio. You're going to have a higher rating in that as far as it being dust and water resistant. I'll say waterproof rating on a radio. That means that the side seals for the accessory jack are sealed. A lot of those sometimes have a screw in them. That screw needs to be in. So if I have the earpiece or a mic screwed into it and dropped it in a bucket of water, it's not going to have the same ability to resist water as if I have the seal cap on it. So we're very big, we're hard on our radios, but, if it's downpouring rain, we don't leave our radios strapped on the outside of our packs. They're just not going to take that much water over time and water not get in them. So, it's an important thing I try to educate people on, is to look at what they call the IP rating. And to me, anything really under about an IP 55 is really just not going to hold up hunting. A guy like yourself that's in the field that many days using them, I'd be surprised if anything under an IP 55 could last a year. In a lot of problems we see in radios, people got to understand, the radios are a funny piece of technology, and I deal with this whether it's a big mine or it's just a couple of hunters. Over time, radios become what I would say, for lack of a better term, out of tune. Okay, we do this even with repeaters, where we go in and we do what's called realigning of the signals. I just actually experienced this with a new hunter out of Idaho. He's an outfitter, and he just bought some of those Titan TR4Xs. Sent me one of his brother's old Motorola Talkabouts. And we were able to look at the code in the channel he wants to match to his new radios on one of his channels. And we program it in. They won't talk to each other. Well, the reason they're not talking to each other is that old Talkabout's so old that it's out of alignment. So the frequency it should be on today, it's actually now a completely different frequency. And so it won't even talk to it.
Because it's been banged around, and it's just
part of it can be being banged around, and part of it's just over time. Radios are like any other piece of equipment; they got to be maintained, and and then obviously there's battery life. A lot of times, you can attest this. I know you've got Motorola CP200s. I know I have some old Motorola CP200s that are 10, 12 years old, and the only thing I've ever had to do to them is just change the batteries.
Yeah.
Because the batteries just aren't going to last that long. So I think it's important, too, to look at how you hunt. These are other kind of questions I ask guys when they're looking for radios. How they hunt, where they hunt, how long they're on them during the day. To me, it's always worth spending another $20 and get the high cap battery that has longer life out of it, for daily use. So there's a lot of those factors that I think are important to look at, and that certainly dictate where those price points start at.
I've got a question about, outfitters and stuff that might have, multiple guides and what have you, and they're running around in their pickups. They've also got their handhelds. How much better are the, let's call them, in the truck radios?
Sure.
As far as, can you
the mobile radios.
The mobile radio a lot further? Are they a lot stronger than handheld?
Yeah, the mobile radios, whether they're VHF or UHF, now they make, depending on the manufacturers, they make what they call low power versions of mobiles, and they make high power versions of mobiles. And a high power mobile, like in UHF, is blasting at 40 watts. In UHF, it's blasting at 45 watts. That's like 8 times what your portable's capable of.
Wow. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. I mean, I experienced this a couple of years ago with my good buddy hunting antelope. You know, we could be 20 miles apart, tons of hills and ridge lines between us spread out, and be able to, you know, glass from close to the truck with the mobile on. And when one of us found something good, tell the other, get in the truck and get over here. I mean, we're able to start talking much longer distances, you know, just because of the amount of output power.
So do you deal with the guys like, say, on the Arizona Strip that have handheld radios? You would also recommend that they put the mobile radios in their trucks so that, you know, multiple guides and what have you can be, you know, maybe connected with one guy that's in the truck that's able to relay a message, you know, to a guy 30, 40 miles away?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Strip's a great example, right, where you can get guys spread out 50 miles apart, right? Not an uncommon thing to experience up there. And so, you know, to have that ability to communicate, not just for hunting purposes, but I think even from a safety aspect, right? To be able to reach somebody in a pinch or if something was really critical, even if you just had a couple guys with mobiles in the trucks that were driving around that could almost, like you're saying, act as a relay. The mobiles can be very, very effective at helping you transmit and communicate much longer distances.
Let's talk a little bit about your boosters. I know you also do, is it the Wilsons?
Yeah.
I know the cell phone boosters.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about those.
Sure. Well, and I think an important thing to know with the cell boosters, that the whole cellular boosting industry went through a lot of change with pressure from the big cellular providers. Okay, and the reason being, because we do big BDAs that are on towers, just like you would do a big repeater, that cover, you know, gigantic areas, right, for like oil and gas companies in the middle of nowhere. So when you start looking at like the booster that you would put in your truck, the thing to understand is a booster doesn't create a signal. You have to be able to be in a spot to at least have a signal. But if I can get a bar, I can boost that and get a call out. Okay, so really for us, you know, we deal with Wilson. You'll also see WeBoost, right? And WeBoost was really just a consumer rebranding of Wilson stuff. So they really are still the same company, you know. But we're also able to, you know, even from a vehicle standpoint, if money's not the issue, you know, we can go to Wilson line products that are even more expensive and even stronger. But you know, it's like anything else, right? If it's better, you got to pay more for that product. But you know, there is a lot of misconception with cell boosters, like it's going to somehow create a cell signal for me, and really it won't. And the FCC and the providers really kind of came down where they had to kind of tone down more or less the capability of these boosters, because really what it was doing, it was really affecting their towers and their boosters, you know, in an area. So I'll give you an example, like out in North Dakota with the oil boom we're out there. You know, we did a lot of cell booster stuff for vehicles, whether they were semi-trucks, pickup trucks, vans they have out on projects. But we're also doing towers at, you know, some of their main yard locations in these towns, because these guys are ranging out, you know, 200 miles. Well, where without it, they don't have cell coverage.
Yeah, you know, I've used my booster. I get a lot of use out of it, and it, like you said, you can't just take no service and all of a sudden get a call out. And I've heard say, oh, these cell phone boosters don't work. Well, if you're in an area that has no coverage at all, you're not going to get out. But you can get out a lot more places if you have a booster, for dang sure.
Oh, for sure. And I think, you know, you and I have experienced that together, right? Where every evening you're driving up to the hill up here where we know we got a signal and we can boost it and make some calls home and check in and let everybody know we're okay.
For sure. Let's take another quick break here.
Yep.
PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Real game calls featuring the elk reel. Real Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy-to-master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle-tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com.
All right, let's talk about satellite phones. Cody, I've been using that Globalstar GSP 1700, and I can really say having the same phone back 10 years ago, I have way less call drops. My calls are clearer. I've really enjoyed having that phone over the last year, using it anywhere from, Mexico to, Unit 9 in Arizona to Colorado up on the river to, all over the place. And in lots of places, I carry it in my pack and I can, basically call, check in at any time. And as well, that phone kit, the car kit, that you hooked me up with is also pretty dang sweet, because I can be driving down the road and talking on my sat phone, and normally you have to be kind of in a stationary position. I've been impressed. Globalstar says they put $1 billion into their satellites. I was just wondering if you could speak on what's going on there. Sure. With that GSP 1700 and Globalstar.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's, for those that were using it like yourself 10 years ago, when they were having to start taking down old satellites and get new ones up and kind of restructure their network, it could be a pretty painful experience in time there, where people were very frustrated, right? And people just assumed, oh, well, I got to go to this one now. It's a better option. But the reality is all those providers are going to have to go through those periods of time when satellites have to come back down. So, really your two big choices out there are Globalstar and Iridium. We work only with Globalstar. And the reason was that they really had to establish the newer network, and they really have the greater ground game. Because people have to also understand it's not just the satellite in the air. There's also a ground station that has to come back to you from a satellite that then gets dispersed through their network, right? And so it's very important to understand, Globalstar has way more ground stations. So if something goes down in one of their locations, they're actually able to kind of realign their network and keep everybody up and talking. I think there's just important things to understand with a satellite phone. It is not a cell phone. Right? You got to keep that antenna, when you're hand holding it, pointed straight up in the air. You have to have at least a 30-degree angle view of the horizon in one of your directions. So if you get down in the bottom of a box canyon, it's not going to work. So it's not a 100% solution, but I can tell you, I feel a lot better when I'm out in the middle of nowhere when I have it. Obviously, I take it for work because I travel to a lot of remote places, and a lot of times that's the only way I can get a call out. The car kit, like you mentioned, I recommend it to everybody. A lot of people don't want to spend the money, but I think when they see it, and you do have that ability to be driving and talking on it, otherwise you have to be outdoors to make a call off a sat phone, and if I got to make a call in the pouring rain and lightning, I'd rather be doing that from in the truck personally. I think an important thing to know too, the antenna that you deploy, it's a mag mount antenna that deploys out of the car kit, and it's what we call a portable docking station. So it'll plug into your cigarette lighter. You deploy on a kit, it's got a coax. You just put it up on the roof. It sticks right to the roof of your truck. And that antenna is actually like 3 times stronger than the antenna on the phone. So you actually have a better chance of getting a call out and in while you're using that unit that way than you do just on the phone itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's been amazing. You told me get the car kit, and I did, and there's something about being out in the middle of nowhere where normally you don't get any cell service. Some of the Navajo, coming across from Colorado to Arizona, driving as I did yesterday, didn't happen to have I wasn't in my truck, but in normal situations, I could be, carrying on a business conversation or dealing, with my outfitting business or what have you, driving right across, 70, 80 mile stretches where you don't have service, just like you have service. And it's pretty sweet to just continue business as normal, as usual.
Well, it is. I mean,
with that setup.
Yeah, I mean, for those that need to stay in communication for business, even when they're out hunting, I think it's, my gosh, it is the best solution that's out there today. You're going to deal, satellites move out of orbit, so if you're connected on one satellite, a call might drop and you might have to make the phone call again, right? And I have to have these conversations with people a lot. They get frustrated, but I think when you kind of explain it to them, they realize, look, this is still better than nothing. I mean, buddy, I've been driving through the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, in a storm and been able, a blizzard basically, and been able to conduct business calls. I can't do that on my cell phone. I wish I could, but it does just at least offer you, I think, if nothing else, when you're out there like that, peace of mind that if something did go wrong, you got a way to get somebody help if they need it. That for me is probably the greatest, asset that it offers.
Cody, what is it about the Iridium that makes that kind of gargled? If you've ever talked to someone on an Iridium phone as opposed to a Globalstar, the Iridium almost sounds like the person that's on the satellite phone is drunk. It's a real kind of slurred speech. Is it
sure,
the relay of the
part
message?
of that's the delay in the relay. So let's say you're talking to somebody on their home phone and you're on your sat phone up on the river fly fishing in Colorado. Part of that, you're going to have a delay because, again, it's that signal's going out to a satellite. It's coming back down to a ground station, basically another giant satellite dish. And then that's getting pushed back across phone network, IP network, whatever, right? And so it can be a combination of a lot of things. It can be a combination of there being a lot of phone traffic in general on the phone lines. I mean, we run into that at times on our cell phone, right, where you go to make a call and it says all circuits are busy. And you're like, how can that be? Well, that's because there's 10 million people making phone calls at the same time. And, so you can run into that as an issue with the satellite phones. So, again, I think it's important to note, is it going to be perfect like I'm sitting in my house on a landline? No. But it certainly offers you a lot. And I can tell you, 90% of the time for me, I'm able to have a clear, nice phone call.
Sure. Cody, let's talk a little bit about radio communication for hunting. In the state of Arizona, it's perfectly legal. I know there's some states, I think Montana, it's not legal. From a hunting standpoint, from your mind, coues deer country, mule deer, big country, what are some of the positives of being able to use a radio when hunting?
Sure. And believe me, I get plenty of, naysayers that, it's cheating. And, the way I look at it in using radio, the radio can't launch the arrow out of my bow and it can't pull the trigger on a 500-yard shot and make me shoot accurately. But it can certainly help you. I mean, the physical rigors of a lot of the country we get into here in Arizona. And, I'll give you a great example. Hunting with a group of guys and friends last year, when they found that buck that I ended up harvesting, I was 5 miles away from those guys. I had no cell coverage. So the only way we were able to communicate really was by two-way radio. So they were able to notify me. It saved me a lot of time and really created an opportunity. But it certainly didn't in any way, guarantee the deal, right? So I think first and foremost, I know for us, it's a safety thing. Being able to check in every hour and make sure everybody's okay. It's very common for us to get spread out, several miles apart in an area and try to cover more ground effectively. B, obviously, I think from the aspect of stalking, to help a guy, it's hard when if you're the guy up on top of the ridge behind the spotting scope and where the guy is down below you stalking an animal a mile away, things don't always look the same. And I know you've experienced that even with me. So
we all have.
There's a lot of frustration there, right? And it builds up a lot of emotion, and I think it's a nice way to kind of talk through things and keep people, possibly from even getting themselves hurt. So it's important to me. I don't think it really gives any sort of an unfair advantage. But yet, there are states still like Montana that do not allow wild hunting. So it's important to know what your own state laws are. Most states will allow it, but you've got to be aware of where those rules apply. And for us, we try to use it more for just checking in with each other, and then on that stock itself. But it gives us at least that peace of mind. If we've got somebody out there that maybe is not as physically capable, it's nice to be able to know they're okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this before in our other podcasts that we did, and there's definitely two trains of thought of the people that are against using radios because they don't believe it's fair for the animals and that the animals don't have a chance. Okay, I'm probably not going to have a chance to persuade those people. They have their opinion, and that's fine. Sure. Then there's the group out there that says, if I can move in on a deer and someone else can watch it, and I can know that I don't waste my whole day out there, and that the deer is moved, and he can tell me, hey, you spooked the buck, he's gone, come back over here. And then there's the whole record book issue of, sure. if you harvest a, fair chase, Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, they don't recognize it, and that's all fine. So, everybody has their opinion. I would just say that there's, many ways to skin a cat. If you do choose to use a radio, great. And, it can be a very efficient tool. We talk about on this podcast, and conversations are held every day on social media, and buddies talking about trying to be more efficient and, reloading and shooting custom ammo and, spending all the time tuning and getting your bow ready and being able to shoot, further distances, being able to shoot more accurately, having high-powered optics to be able to see better. If you live in a state where, using a radio is legal, it can be an extremely fun way to hunt because you get to talk with your buddies and check in with your buddies, and you can split up and, go up on two different ridges, and from a just fun aspect, you can split up and cover more country, but still carry on a conversation with your buddy and enjoy your day. So, I mean, there's
well, hey, let's be honest. We together, we've all had a lot of fun times busting each other's chops out in the field, right? So, yeah, they can bring a lot of laughs, and I think that's a great point to point out. I mean, it is nice when you're sitting out there solitary, alone up on top of some mesa, not hearing someone else's voice for 8 hours can get a little lonely at times, and I think it keeps you sharper. I think another aspect that really just kind of popped in my mind is, look, the reality is sometimes we wound an animal, right? And if you do have someone watching and they're able to keep track of it, and we're able to go track that animal back down and really keep them from suffering longer term, I think that's a great thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had certain exact circumstances where, something's been hit and someone can say, keep going, go another 35 yards. You just see that bush on your right, look down. There should be blood. He walked right through there, and all of a sudden you're back on your trail. So, I mean, I see all aspects. If you don't want to use a radio, fine, don't use a radio. If your state doesn't allow it, fine. But, there are some great advantages to using a radio. And it's not my job or your job here to convince people of that. They have to convince themselves either to or not to. But I can tell you that, I've had a lot of people that have, started using a radio, and it's making the hunt more enjoyable. And let's face it, we need as many hunters in the field as we can. And if that will help people engage and stay in the hunt, then so be it. I think it's a lot of fun having a radio with you at all times.
I agree, and I think I think it's an important thing to point out and address. And again, I feel the same way. I respect those that don't want to use them, that feel that it's somehow possibly unfair, and I respect that opinion. It's not.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're hunting if you're hunting a big giant buck and you want to enter, it's important to you to enter it in Boone and Crockett. Don't use a radio.
Well, exactly.
I mean, if you don't care about putting your animals in a record book, then use a radio.
Exactly. It's a very individual thing, and I mean, here's the thing I can tell. I mean, we end up taking my hunting radios to kids' sporting events, to different things we go on outings, right? You end up using them for so many more things than just a hunting experience, and you end up having a good time. I mean, when we're road tripping and we're in multiple vehicles, right? It's nice to just have an open line of communication, not having to make calls back and forth, and so there's a lot of things with the radios I think that do make it fun. But again, to me, it really comes down to people need to stop and look at, what am I doing for emergency preparedness? You think it isn't going to happen to you or one of your buddies, but it has for me, right? To where we had to deal with someone that got hurt, and you're not close to the truck, and how are we going to deal with this? And to be able to get everybody back together and kind of collectively help somebody get out. And, for me, it's, and I know you probably venture further in than anyone else I know, and I'm still trying to keep venturing further in. And, I want to know I've got the peace of mind that if I get myself or someone else in a bad spot, that we have a way to get some help.
For sure. Cody, what hunts do you have coming up? I think you've got a deer tag in your pocket.
I do. I've got a October whitetail tag over in Unit 22 again, where I spend a lot of my time. So I'll be back at it, hitting it here pretty soon.
What is it about the coues deer that's got you and me wrapped up so bad?
Well, I probably have to take this moment and thank Cody Nelson for his dad that took us out whitetail hunting for the first time in my life. I think I was about 15 years old. And my dad was never really the big game hunter. He's more of a fisherman and a bird hunter. And I tell you what, there's not another animal I can think that I've hunted that is so frustrating to hunt that you love it. And it's such a hard thing to put into words. But I think the more I watch those deer, and truly just how cunning of an animal that is, it's really under constant pressure of predators. There's just not another animal you can sit in glass and really intimately watch that takes two steps, takes a bite off of a bush, and then turns its head in a split second and looks over its back shoulder every 5 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're watching him at 1,000 yards, and you think he's looking right at you because, every little move you make, you think he hears you because he's looking in your direction, and it's really just their nature and how wary they are. But Goff, to be honest with you,
if every second of your waking day there was a lion that was about to jump on you, you'd probably be the same way.
Oh yeah, you'd be exactly the same way. You know, it's well, you know, and I always laugh too, right? When the people that are anti-hunters or don't care for hunting and these poor defenseless deer, I don't think most people really appreciate how tough even a little coues deer is. I can tell you, I ain't gonna try to go wrestle one with just my bare hands. They're not weak animals.
Yeah, they're awesome animals. Well, I'm excited to see how you do this year, and I know you'll enjoy every second of your hunt. And congrats on drawing a tag. I want to thank you for spending time and educating us on all sorts of communications. And I want to give you a chance to let people know where they can reach you, how they can get a hold of you, and just thank you for coming on here.
Well, and Jay, thanks for all that you do, because I really respect, you know, the way you go at what you do. Is it's not just going out and promoting something. I mean, I think you take the time to help educate and teach people, and I think that's what makes it worthwhile and makes it fun, right? So, you know, if people want more information from us, obviously they can go to our website at outdoor2way.com, and that's just the number 2. Or you can call me anytime. My number is 602-329-1773, or you can email me at cody@aircom.com. All my contact information is on the outdoor2way.com as well, and we just look forward to any way we can help you guys.
That sounds good. And just to be clear, I believe Cody at Aircom? Com is 2 M's, correct?
2 M's, yeah. So AIRCOMM.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, buddy, God bless, and I'll be chatting at you down the road. And
you too. I'm sure I'll see you in the field this elk season, not too far away, buddy.
All right, buddy. Sounds great, and knock 'em dead, okay?
All right, you too. Take care.
All right, bye.